Hello, I'm Bas Hamer from Possum Labs, and today we'll be talking about the fourth tutorial of the PossumLabs.DSL libraries, and we'll be talking about characteristics. And we're making the assumption that you are using the PossumLabs.DSL.English package to set up your project. So let's hop over to Visual Studio and see what we got going on. So I'll close these guys. And we're going to go to the DSL English version for characteristics. Now, what we're interested in here is the following scenario. Right, we're dealing with something a little bit different than templates. Right? We talked about templates before. But templates is about data. Characteristics is about state. The reason we don't call it state is because we understand that entities can have multiple states at once. For instance, you can have a VIP user and you can have a locked out user, but you can also have a locked out VIP user. Right? So it's a little bit more combinational than state, whereas when I called things state before, people assume things could only have one state. So that's the naming behind it. But what we're dealing with is transitions, right? And these are usually complicated transitions that you can't just fix by specifying the data. For instance, let's imagine an example like a logged in user. When a user is logged in, it's not a Boolean in your database. Well, there might be one as well, but the web server needs to understand that this user is logged in, right? The web server needs to have a session. That session has to be authenticated. There's a lot of things that have to be in place for a user to be logged in. It's really a state transition that may happen multiple times for a particular entity over the course of a day. So that's where characteristics come in. Characteristics is really to allow you to create these types of state transitions and still provide you with a nice, concise language to utilize them. So let's look at the first scenario. We create a user and then we say, the user is locked out. And here we have the second scenario. We say, given the user that is locked out, and we specify that it's user U1. So what we're doing here is we're effectively instructing. Well, the big difference between these two scenarios is that the first one specifies what to do, and the second one specifies what it expects to have been done. Right? So you're letting the framework make more decisions, and this makes it easier in the future to change the behavior around how you lock out a user. Or you may have multiple ways that users can be locked out, and you want to test your test suite once with option 1 for people getting locked out and once for option 2 for people getting locked out. Right? And it's much easier to do when that's part of the framework rather than tied to a specific step. Okay, so let's take a look at what actually needs to happen for this to be possible. So we're going to go to our users under entities, and there's two parts to this. First of all, over here we have the registration of characteristics. And then down below, we have the application of characteristics and the given the users. Well, let's first look at registration. So for registration, we have two things going on. Here we have a registration for characteristics.none. And here we have a second registration for locked out. So characteristics.none is effectively the empty set of characteristics. Characteristics can be converted to and from string, and effectively what it does is it takes a list of strings, it splits it out around the comma, and then what it will do is that it will compare as if the order of the items in the comma separated list did not matter. So what's happening here is we specify that if nothing is specified, we just want to create a user. And if somebody specified locked out, what we're going to do is we first call the characteristics.none, which of course means right here we create the user. And then the second thing is we call this method given the user is locked out, and then we just return our user. So what this is meaning is that this characteristics for locked out piggybacks upon the characteristics for characteristics.none. The second part is down below. And what we're doing here is we have our users, and now we're going to apply the characteristics that are specified to each of those users that we're asked to create. And that's pretty much all you have to do to utilize characteristics. We'll look a little bit more as to what's possible with these things in the future as we start discussing defaults in the next lesson. Please let me know if these tutorials are useful and provide comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback.